Pokémon, medicine and martial arts. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination, so don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author, we are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like, and if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 1076 The Round of 16 ends. After eliminating 2 Pokemon in quick succession, Charizard, far from showing any signs of fatigue, remained remarkably energetic. However, the opposing trainer seemed well prepared. Despite facing a disadvantage with 4 Pokemon already eliminated, they refused to give up and sent out their 5th Pokemon. This 5th Pokemon was the legendary, long-extinct ancient Pokemon, Pteranodon. Pteranodon looked incredibly high level, and Charizard's stats didn't offer any advantage, instead being countered. Therefore, the match between Charizard and Pteranodon seemed predictable. Pteranodon, after a fierce battle with Charizard, ultimately paid a small price to eliminate Charizard. Yu chose not to send out a new Pokemon this time, instead sending out Suicune to continue the battle. Pteranodon, a formidable Pokemon, stood up to the attacks of Suicune, a legendary beast. It was still able to cause considerable trouble to Suicune before being eliminated. Although Pteranodon was successfully eliminated, Suicune, without the prerequisite of a Bond Mega Evolution, was still a considerable drain. But overall, it was worth it, everything was worth it. By this point, the opponent had only 1 Pokemon left. Meanwhile, Yu still had 3 Pokemon in a winning state, capable of fighting Suicune head-on. Pokemon trainers who had made it this far were rarely soft-hearted, and certainly wouldn't give up easily. They almost always believed their Pokemon could fight to the bitter end. Therefore, even in such a passive and disadvantageous situation, the opposing trainer still chose to continue the fight. However, Pteranodon was perhaps the most powerful Pokemon he could train at this point. The Pokemon the opposing trainer sent out was a Pteranodon. As expected of a trainer who had advanced to the round of 16, even amateurs had already greatly overestimated him. However, in the ensuing clash with the Pterosaur, Yu's side suffered heavy losses. Suicune and Pikachu were losing their combat abilities one after another. In the end, Yu deployed his last-rank Moltres. Leveraging the strength of Moltres, coupled with the already depleted Pterosaur's stamina, Yu ultimately defeated the opposing trainer. Thus, Yu triumphed, ultimately advancing to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Yanrong and Yulong Zinai also secured victories, advancing to the quarterfinals. Afterward, they gathered again to watch the other trainers' matches, as they could be their next opponents and needed to carefully study them. They also awaited the conclusion of the round of 16. The round of 16 concluded amidst the audience's enthusiastic cheers and passionate, excited screams. However, with the conclusion of the top 16, the trainers and spectators presented and rushed to leave. Instead, they quietly stared at the electronic display. Photos of the qualified contestants appeared one after another on the display. With a whirlwind of movement, the photos, once neatly arranged, began to shuffle. Finally, the matchups for the quarterfinals were announced. Yu, you're playing against Nobuo Miku, eh? With Xiaozhi's exclamation, Yu and Nobuo Miku finally discovered their upcoming quarterfinal opponents. How could this be? Xiaozhi looked incredulous. To him, Nobuo Miku and Yu were close friends. Was it okay to keep fighting like this? There's nothing good or bad about it. Competitions are just like that. And the only way trainers can truly establish their friendship is through Pokemon battles, right? Professor Oak was quite relieved and began to comfort Xiaozhi. He believed that Xiaozhi and Xiaomao still had a long way to go. What's coming will come sooner or later. Yu, let's go all out and have a good fight this time. Yes, I'll do my best. Let's have a fight that leaves no regrets for either of us. Yu and Yulong Zinai were quite open-minded. Then the two of them left the scene first, under the pretext of adjusting their status to prepare for the intense battle that was about to begin. At night, in the residence provided by the Alliance to Professor Oak, Yu did not go to bed early as usual to recharge his energy. Instead, he sat in the courtyard with a group of Pokemon, gazing at the starry sky. Although they didn't know what their master was thinking at the moment, the Pokemon also looked up at the sky with their trainer. What's wrong, Yu? Are you nervous about the battle again? Professor Oak suddenly appeared and sat down next to Yu. No, I can't quite put my finger on it. It might be nervousness, but maybe not, is that so? I can completely understand how you feel. After all, every battle with a formidable rival is filled with excitement. Professor Oak, he seemed surprised that Professor Oak could read his thoughts. But Professor Oak simply patted Yu on the shoulder. Don't overthink it. Just give it your all. No matter who wins or loses, neither of you will have let the other down, because you both fought with your best efforts. I'm so sleepy. Go back and get some more sleep. Professor Oak then left. Yu and his Pokemon were left staring at the twinkling stars in the sky. Why overthink it? Pokemon battles are just like what I told Nobuo Yu before, give it your all. Fight a battle without regrets. In the following moments, Yu began to train Pikachu and the other Pokemon, hoping to defeat Nobuo Yu in the upcoming battle. It's not that he doesn't want to undergo intense special training, but the time is too short, and the subsequent competitions simply don't allow him to do so. Chapter 1077 The Same Battle. Time passed quickly, and the quarterfinals were about to begin. The atmosphere in the venue remained as lively as before, though with a heightened sense of tension. Yu, I hope we can have a battle without regrets. I will definitely give my all to defeat you. What are you talking about? I think I should be saying that to you. It doesn't matter who said it, let's both work hard. Everyone must give their all on the field. Regardless of who wins or loses, the winner must carry the other's efforts to win the final championship. With a match decided in the venue, it was finally time for the quarterfinals. Yulong Zenai and Yu began their battle. However, on their way to the players' tunnel, they bumped into each other again. Their fists bumped, and both young men wore confident and calm smiles. This was the promise they had made. Yu and Yulong Zenai appeared at the end of the tunnel at the same time. After a brief introduction by the commentator, the quarterfinals battle finally began. Let's fight it out with Nobuyuki. The first match is yours, Sonic Dragon. Sonic Dragon takes first place. Yu, you're as cautious as ever. In that case, I'll leave Sand Dragon to you. As the two Pokemon were released by their respective trainers, they emanated a seemingly unparalleled dragon-like aura. Both Pokemon happened to possess dragon attributes, and the two invisible auras clashed relentlessly. Sonic Dragon uses Dragon Breath, Sonic Dragon uses Dragon Breath, Sonic Dragon uses Dragon Claw, Sonic Dragon uses Dragon Tail. Though only just beginning, the clash was already intense, with relentless collisions and separations. After the collisions, another clash followed, and after the clashes, another separation. This cycle repeated itself. And whether intentional or not, the commands issued by the trainers on both sides were almost always dragon attributed. And whenever one gave an order, the other would follow suit. Yu, there's no end to this fight. Let's settle it at one table. Okay, I agree. Soundwave Dragon, use Dragon Dive. Desert Dragonfly, use Dragon Dive. Two ferocious dragon phantoms, circling each other in midair, launched their attacks at each other. As the aftermath of the explosion receded, two Pokemon appeared, struggling to hold their bodies together, staring at each other. But that gaze only lasted a moment before each revealed a look of resignation. At that moment, both Pokemon fell to the ground, unable to fight. Regarding the draw in the first match, Yu and Dragonite Shino said it was nothing, a perfectly normal and basic move. They calmly collected their Pokemon and prepared to send out their Pokemon for the second battle. While the trainers in the two fields remained calm, the audience watching in the stands could not remain calm. They all erupted in cheers. They were thrilled to see such a fierce battle unfold at the very beginning. If the opening fight was already so intense, surely the next battle would be even more intense. Charizard, it's decided you'll be the one, Charizard, then I'll leave it to you. This time, the two sides sent out two identical Pokemon, no longer with the same attributes. However, Yuyu's Charizard looked even more majestic and domineering due to the flame patterns on its body. Overall, these two Charizards could be considered old rivals. Therefore, there was no further ado. The encounter between the two old rivals was filled with jealousy. Urayu Nobunuga's Charizard, in particular, was determined to avenge its previous defeat upon seeing the opposing Charizard. However, despite its intense desire to defeat the opposing Charizard, Urayu Nobunuga's Charizard remained steadfast and obeyed its trainer's orders. Charizard, use Jet Fire. Charizard, will use Jet Fire too. The clash of the two jets clearly showed that Yuyu's Charizard's Jet Fire was a bit more powerful. Charizard, don't be angry, use Dragon Claw. Charizard, will use Dragon Claw too. Another clash ensued, the clash of Dragon Claws clearly visible. Yu's Charizard clearly outperformed the opposing Charizard. However, both Yulongsen's Charizard and himself seemed deeply unwilling to accept this. Sometimes, they strive to prove themselves by winning against the same Pokémon with the same moves. Therefore, throughout the rest of the battle, both trainers continued issuing the same commands, and the Pokémon used the same moves. However, throughout this series, Yu's Charizard consistently outperformed Yulongsen's Charizard. Ouch! Yulongsen's Charizard, seemingly unable to bear it any longer, let out a piercing roar, its wings flapping as it prepared to fight the opposing Charizard to the death. However, facing Charizard's frenzied attack, Yu's Charizard showed disdain. He launched a direct earth throw, instantly killing the opposing Charizard. However, while Yulongsen's Charizard was eliminated, the battle, despite Charizard dominating the opposing Charizard, had also consumed a significant amount of energy. Yu, however, didn't mind much of it, at least the significance of this battle had been achieved. Yulongsen took a deep breath before returning Charizard to its Pokéball and sending out his next Pokémon. I'm counting on you this time, Flamahawk. Yulongsen released another flying Pokémon. However, when the Flaming Eagle faced Charizard, it seemed a different story. In terms of both speed and strength, Charizard was practically completely overwhelming. This time, the outcome of the battle between Charizard and the Flaming Eagle was even more direct. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1078, Overcoming All Obstacles. Ouch! Charizard roared excitedly. Flaming Hawk had barely appeared when Charizard's three-move combo, a Dragon Claw charge, a Dragon Tail sweep, and an Earth throw, immediately disabled it. Dragon Nebuno seemed somewhat indifferent to his Flaming Hawk's swift incapacity. However, he collected his Pokémon and silently waited for the second half's venue change. Yu also watched Charizard, which had landed on the grass. Although Charizard had quickly disabled Flaming Hawk, it seemed effortless, but Charizard had already been significantly depleted. This was like squeezing out the last of its already low battery. However, because the venue change was imminent, Yu tucked Charizard back into its Pokéball just as it was about to take flight. The second half's venue was also chosen at this time, the water venue. Yu was quite pleased with the battlefield. After all, some of his main Pokémon were suited for water combat. I'm impressed, but since you insist, then keep going, Yu sighed helplessly before tossing his Pokéball. Charizard, which had been retrieved from its Pokéball, reappeared on the field. Yu, what do you mean by this? Are you looking down on me? Charizard's already running out of stamina, and you're still asking him to come out? Are you deliberately trying to get me killed? I don't need such charity. Yulongsen's face was sullen. After all, the series of defeats had inevitably worn down his mentality. Zenai, I can only say you're overthinking it. Charizard's only doing this because of the look in his eyes before I retrieved him. I knew he wanted to keep fighting. As a trainer, of course, I have to support my Pokémon. Yu smiled softly, which was the reason for his previous sigh of frustration. And don't underestimate me, Charizard. I might even be able to defeat one of your Pokémon. Yulong Nebuno, show your strength and fight me. Isn't that what we agreed on? Yulong Nebuno was silent for a moment, but then a smile broke out. Yes. I must fight with all my might. How can I give up now, Gyarados? I'll leave it to you. Regaining his spirits, Yulong Nebuno then sent out his fourth Pokémon. Charizard, those are all old rivals. Don't embarrass me. Go ahead, take out that Gyarados, and then I'll go back and feed you. Oh my, Charizard's eyes lit up at the thought of feeding. Use Flamethrower, we'll use Flamethrower, Gyarados too. Even with Charizard's stamina drained, he was still able to match Gyarados with Flamethrower. At least in this exchange of Flamethrowers, neither side gained any advantage. Gyarados, use Water Cannon. Charizard, use Flame Jet. Gyarados, use 100,000 volts. Just as Charizard used Flame Jet to block Gyarados' Water Cannon attack, Gyarados took advantage, and the 100,000 volts hit Charizard unexpectedly. Charizard, still fending off the water cannon attack, was instantly struck by the 100,000 volts. Without any resistance, the powerful damage instantly destroyed Charizard, already drained of most of its stamina. However, even as Charizard was struck by the 100,000 volts, Liu Lu's eyes still held a look of regret. Whether it was regret for not being able to continue fighting and win victory for her trainer, or regret for not earning the right to a snack tonight, it's unclear. Thank you for your hard work, Charizard. I'll definitely give you a snack when we get home tonight, Yu muttered to himself as he put Charizard back into its Pokeball. Then I'll leave it to you, Gyarados, to secure victory for me. For some reason, a strange feeling welled up in the audience. While the battle between the two trainers was intense, it felt like they were fighting each other. What's going on with Yu and Nobuo Yulong? Why are the Pokemon they sent out for battle almost identical? What do you mean by almost identical? I mean, almost identical? Okay, while their battles are certainly exciting, why is it? I feel a sense of fatigue watching them. Even those in the audience who knew Yu and Nobuo Yulong couldn't help but complain. The audience was both curious and excited about this battle, yet also somewhat frustrated. This was because, aside from the previous battle involving Flamahawk, which was dominated by Charizard, the other battles were essentially identical, with the two Pokemon fighting each other in much the same way. I don't know why, but I suddenly have the urge to beat up the two trainers below. It's fine if the Pokemon they send out are almost identical, but why do they have to use the same skills? It's like fighting yourself, except the other one might be a little stronger. Ignoring the frantic complaints from the audience, Dragon Nobuno and Yu continued their focused battle. It was still the same old formula. Gyarados, use Dragon Tail. Gyarados, we use Dragon Tail too. Gyarados, use Bite. Gyarados, use Iron Head. Another close quarters fight between two behemoths, another nearly identical skills. But this time, perhaps both knew they'd be criticized if they continued this way. So, the skills were similar, the effects were the same, and the names were just changed. But even so, the audience's mouths twitched, and they let out a series of sighs. The two Gyarados, leveraging their massive bodies, entangled themselves like two ropes, their entanglement growing tighter and tighter. Their clashes, physical collisions and the clashing of skills, underscored the brutality of this battle. These two Pokemon were not only tanks, but also possessed enhanced damage output, resulting in a frenzy of excitement. Chapter 1079, Flamebird's Defeat. Gyarados uses Destruction Beam. Gyarados, we use Destruction Beam too. Finally, the two Gyarados used Destruction Beams at close range, neither able to withstand the other's powerful blow, and both were simultaneously rendered incapacitated. This outcome was unexpected for both the trainers on the field and the audience. As the two Pokemon's Destruction Beams clashed, the atmosphere cooled completely. For a moment, a pin drop could be heard, as the trainers on both sides fell silent. However, this atmosphere was short-lived, quickly drowned out by enthusiastic cheers and shouts. This is truly spectacular. Both trainers displayed tremendous abilities, and the Pokemon battles are already incredibly intense. The commentator chimed in at the perfect moment. It was truly exhilarating. The battle between Nobuno and Yu is just as exhilarating as ever. Yu felt every cell in his body energized, his fighting spirit boiling once again. Yu, I didn't expect you to be so strong. You're truly worthy of being considered my formidable opponent. Be prepared. I'm about to send out my strongest Pokemon. Yulong Zenai's expression was extremely solemn. Up to this point, 4 of Yulong Zenai's Pokemon had been incapacitated, while Yu's had also lost 3. Overall, the gap between them wasn't that great. However, in these past few battles, Yulong Zenai had been completely dominated by Yu. I couldn't ask for more. Yu's expression was also grave. Although his Pokemon had consistently outperformed Yulong Zenai's in these battles, didn't that mean he could tell Wu Iya that the opponent's Pokemon was indeed stronger? Moreover, the battle would only intensify as it progressed, and the Pokemon he encountered would only become stronger. Dragonite is decided on Yu, another extremely rare Dragon-type Pokemon, and judging by the power this Dragonite exudes, it's formidable. After a brief moment of thought, Yu shifted his hand from one Pokeball to another. I'll leave this Moltres battle to you. Compared to Dragonite's imposing aura, Moltres' was even more formidable. After all, the difference between a Quasi-God and a legendary beast isn't just a matter of words, the difference is enormous. Moltres' appearance heightened the atmosphere. Perhaps because Moltres is a legendary beast, many people have never seen it, or simply don't know about it. But at least the commentators in each league were highly professional. After listening to the detailed explanations from the league's commentators, everyone gained a clear understanding of Moltres. As the commentators continued to explain, the battle gradually intensified. Although it was only the beginning, neither side had tested the opponent's strength, and each skill was almost fully utilized by both Pokémons. Dragonite, use your wings. Molten, let's use our wings too. Dragonite, use Dragon Breath. Molten, use Flame Jet. Dragonite, show your speed and engage in close combat. After such a long battle, Yulong and I had more or less learned some of the opponent's Pokémon's weaknesses. For example, the Pokémon under Yu's command, thanks to Yu's own strength, were very adept at close combat. However, there were a few exceptions, such as Moltres before him. Moltres, perhaps due to its own strength, wasn't very adept at engaging in close combat. Compared to Pokémon with a powerful physique like Dragonite, Moltres, a fragile Pokémon, would be practically rendered ineffective by a Pokémon with high power output and defense. Therefore, from the beginning of the battle until now, there had been only a few close combat encounters to test the waters. In the subsequent battles, Moltres had mostly kept a distance and engaged Dragonite. Therefore, the opponent's Dragonite quickly discovered this. Furthermore, Dragonite itself was a relatively rare Pokémon, with only a few stats capable of countering it. With its powerful stats, Dragonite somewhat made up for the difference in base stats, giving it a slight chance to suppress Moltres. However, this opportunity was fully exploited by Nobuno Yulong, who once again demonstrated his immense speed. Using this swiftness, Dragonite gradually began to suppress Moltres. After a relentless pursuit, Moltres' attacks were steadily repelled. This gave Nobuno Yulong a glimmer of hope for victory. This was his only chance since the beginning of the battle to suppress Leaf Feather's Pokémon. Therefore, giving up so easily would only increase the chances of victory. Using another 100,000-volt attack to lure the enemy, Dragonite, relying on its incredible speed, attacked Moltres with a lightning palm. Once again struck by a powerful, damaging skill, Moltres, despite its legendary status, could not change the facts. It could only regrettably fall from the sky, rendered incapable of combat. Facing this outcome, there might have been some disappointment among those present, but more was a sense of excitement at the triumph of a common Pokémon over a legendary Pokémon. Yu was equally surprised by the scene before him, and even Yulong Zanai was the same. He had assumed he would remain at a disadvantage, but unexpectedly, there was a chance for a comeback. Since there's still a chance, I must seize it, Zanai silently warned himself, while also trying not to let his guard down. Molten, thank you for your hard work this time. Come back and rest well. Yu didn't blame Moltres for her defeat. After all, they, the trainers, shared a great deal of responsibility for this situation. Suicune, I'll leave it to you this time. Help me win the final victory. Chapter 1080 Mega Evolution Battle. This Suicune is another legendary Pokémon. I never thought it would happen. Yu is so generous, sending out 2 legendary Pokémons in quick succession. The atmosphere in the arena was almost at its peak, undimmed by the impact of Moltres' defeat by Dragonite. However, the next Suicune sent out was particularly aggressive, completely losing his usual elegance and friendly demeanor towards other Pokémon and humans. The newly sent Suicune was particularly aggressive. Before Yu could even give the order, he had already launched a freeze beam towards Dragonite. Suicune's sudden attack was completely unexpected, and Dragonite was caught off guard and hit by the freeze beam. However, although hit by the freeze beam, it was only a single blow and would not instantly incapacitate Dragonite. This sudden attack also prepared Dragonite for the next attack. Even though Dragonite had been prepared, the swift attack from Suicune, following Yu's command, still caught Dragonite off guard. After dodging countless times, Suicune leaped high into the air. In a split second, he had already surpassed Dragonite, soaring to the same height as Dragonite. But this wasn't the end of the story. Perhaps due to the damage sustained by the previous freezing beam, Dragonite's wings were slightly damaged. His flight was shaky, and Suicune suddenly landed on Dragonite's back and bit down with his ice fang. He then held on to Dragonite's back tightly, biting repeatedly. The chill radiating from his ice fangs caused Dragonite to cry out in pain. Despite Dragonite's thrashing, Suicune remained unmoved. As if unfazed, he continued his assault, biting Dragonite's back with his ice fangs, continuing his fierce attack. Dragonite used Dragon Dive on the ground. Yulong Zinai, driven to the edge by this point, issued a rather self-destructive order directly to Dragonite. A shadowy dragon image began to envelop Dragonite, completely enveloping it, including Suicune on its back. Suicune, use Freeze Beam. As the shadowy dragon image gradually unfolded, Yu decisively issued the order. He couldn't afford to lose a single Suicune. After all, as the situation unfolded, Yu had learned that Yulong Zinai's last remaining Pokémon was Tyrannosaurus, a powerful force he had left to fight Tyrannosaurus. Suicune, after receiving the order, immediately lost all hesitation. He used Dragonite's back to propel himself upward, but at the same moment, Suicune's Freeze Beam was already launched. Dragonite felt a sudden, powerful push on his back. In a mere moment, Dragonite, which had previously condensed the shadowy dragon image, was gone. With this thrust, it crashed to the ground, its miserable wail still echoing from its descent. Faced with the overwhelming damage, Dragonite had no power to resist. Though struck down, Dragonite on the ground hadn't lost its fighting power immediately. It still struggled to maintain its fighting capacity, its eyes filled with resignation. But faced with overwhelming superiority, it could only exacerbate its sense of powerlessness. The last thing it saw was Suicune's gradually enlarging figure. Dragonite lost its fighting power, and its portrait on the electronic display dimmed. You're actually sending Suicune directly into battle? If so, then Tyrannosaurus Rex gives you our last chance this time, Nobuno. I don't think there's much point in continuing like this. How about something exciting? Yu suddenly suggested, as if on a whim. What kind of excitement? Dragonite Nobuno, now intrigued, couldn't help but ask. Of course, it's something like this. Suicune Mega Evolves. As Yu finished his words, the entire venue erupted in excitement, having witnessed something truly incredible, a legendary beast capable of further Mega Evolution. Yu, it looks like these last month weren't wasted. He's already successfully mastered the Mega Evolution with Suicune, Professor Oak exclaimed in admiration, but his gaze was drawn elsewhere. We're Mega Evolving Tyrannosaurus too. After his initial days, Yulong Zinai, unwilling to be left behind, was eager to join the fray. It looks like this is going to be a fierce battle. I'm already looking forward to it, my blood is boiling. I want to have another Pokemon battle with them. Come on, Xiaozhi, stop embarrassing yourself. Of course, Yu couldn't hear the heated discussions in the audience, even though he was a warrior with keen senses and hearing. After the two Pokemon on both sides Mega Evolved, the battle was about to begin. Suicune, use Water Cannon. Tyrannosaurus, use Dragon Wave. Suicune, use Freeze Beam. Tyrannosaurus, dodge and use Dragon Claw. Despite its massive size, Tyrannosaurus was incredibly agile, dodging Suicune's Freeze Beam with a simple movement. Suicune, use high-speed movement, then impact. After dodging Tyrannosaurus's Dragon Claw, Suicune launched a powerful kick, slamming directly into Tyrannosaurus. Unexpectedly, the frail Suicune dared to challenge him in such a powerful clash. Tyrannosaurus, caught off guard, was sent flying backwards. Suicune was simply beginning to press his advantage. But Tyrannosaurus, worthy of being Nobuno Otako's strongest Pokemon, quickly steadied itself and adjusted itself in the face of such a sudden attack. Without a moment's hesitation, it charged head-on at the oncoming Suicune. Tyrannosaurus uses Dragon Dive. What? Using Dragon Dive at such a close distance, Suicune, use Freeze Beam to block it. Because Dragon Dive was used at such a close distance, Suicune wanted to dodge but it was too late, so he could only take it. Chapter 1081 Fierce Battle. Under the impact of the Dragon God's swooping attack, the ice crystals shattered layer by layer. Even the incredibly effective and damaging Freeze Ray was no match for the Dragon God's close-range attack. As the ice crystals, which had been resisting, shattered, Suicune was sent flying by the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Furthermore, the Tyrannosaurus Rex pressed on, sweeping its powerful tail across the air. Suicune's body, which had been about to land, was sent flying back a distance. However, these two consecutive attacks didn't inflict fatal damage on the water soldier. With a swift, graceful spin in midair, Suicune maneuvered and landed. Suicune wasn't one to take kindly to the Tyrannosaurus Rex's sudden attack. He immediately launched a counterattack, unleashing water cannon fire from all directions, blocking the Tyrannosaurus Rex's escape routes. But was the Tyrannosaurus Rex the kind of creature he'd fear? As its massive, crescent-shaped wings flapped vigorously, powerful gusts of wind began to scatter in all directions. Facing a barrage of water cannon attacks, the Tyrannosaurus unleashed a combination of wing attack and steel wings. Its massive wings resembled two scythes of death, their flapping like a slash. Wherever they passed, the incoming water cannons exploded into countless sprays of water. The enemy was closing in, and its sharp, pointed teeth began to gleam, a prelude to skill. Lightning flickered faintly on the sharp, piercing teeth of the Tyrannosaurus. This was no small feat, considering Thunderfang was incredibly effective against a water-type Pokémon like Suicune. However, Suicune's melee abilities were limited. Facing the enemy's active melee attack, even knowing it would be passive, it still countered with Ice Fang. The collision of ice and lightning was so intense that sparks flew. In just a few minutes, both Pokémon were already furious. Suicune, using the same tactics he'd used on Dragonite on Tyrannosaurus, used them on the latter. With his agile form and positioning, he leaped directly onto the Tyrannosaurus's back and unleashed a frenzied attack. Dragon-type Pokémon are known for their ferocity, and Dragonite had previously displayed similar ferocity. However, due to the power disparity and stamina drained by the two Pokémon, Dragonite was unable to maintain its ferocity and was effectively suppressed by Suicune. Tyrannosaurus, on the other hand, was in a completely different situation, possessing even greater stamina and power than Dragonite. Suicune, still clinging to the Tyrannosaurus, was quickly thrown off, and continued to withstand wave after wave of fierce attacks from the Tyrannosaurus. Pokémon like Suicune are almost exclusively suited to battles that require a quick conclusion, relying either on overwhelming strength or agile positioning. Suicune has a chance of victory based on these factors, but when faced with Pokémon that rely solely on strength, it's completely at a disadvantage. This is especially true in situations like the current one, where the battle is clearly headed towards a protracted one. Suicune isn't known for its stamina to begin with, and as the battle drags on, its weaknesses are gradually becoming apparent. Initially, Suicune could rely on its abundant stamina to fight the Tyrannosaurus Rex with a draw, but now, facing the Tyrannosaurus Rex's seemingly tireless and relentless attacks, Suicune is completely at a disadvantage. The situation is looking grim. We must find a way to turn the tide, or Suicune will likely lose. As Suicune's trainer, Yiyu was naturally aware of Suicune's current state. If that's the case, let's fight it out. Watching the fierce battle, Yiyu seemed to have a sudden realization. His initially hesitant expression gradually grew resolute after he saw Suicune being blasted away by the Tyrannosaurus once again. Suicune, use Freeze Beam. As time wore on, the Tyrannosaurus began to gradually overpower Suicune. Of course, Suicune wouldn't miss such a good opportunity, but as if making a last-ditch effort, Suicune aimed his Freeze Beam directly at the Tyrannosaurus, hoping to intercept the Tyrannosaurus's attack. However, the Tyrannosaurus displayed such ferocity that even facing its highly effective ice attribute skills, it charged forward fearlessly. Using its claws, the Freeze Beam began to split in two. Then, the claws fused together, like a poisonous dragon drill, and it continued to charge forward. As the saying goes, the first push is enough, the second weakens, and the third is exhaustion. At this moment, both Suicune and Tyrannosaurus displayed immense endurance. Both Pokémon displayed remarkable endurance, but even so, Tyrannosaurus, with a fearless aura, finally rushed in front of Suicune. However, this time, Suicune didn't try to dodge again, but instead charged at Tyrannosaurus's fierce glare. What the hell? Just a quasi-divine beast, how dare you be so arrogant in front of a pure divine beast like me? The icy Ice Fang bit down mercilessly on Tyrannosaurus. Having been subjected to freezing rays for most of the way, Tyrannosaurus's body was already completely covered in a thin layer of ice crystals. If it had stayed in the cold for a few minutes, Tyrannosaurus would have successfully transformed into an ice sculpture. Even though it didn't turn into an ice sculpture, the Tyrannosaurus began to slow. Facing Suicune's sudden, violent bite and attack from his Ice Fang, the Tyrannosaurus felt a sharp pain radiate through its body. Then, relying on its defenses and instincts, it launched its dragon tail attack directly at the source of the pain. Suicune, who had previously held on to the Tyrannosaurus with his Ice Fang, was completely helpless against this immense force. As the ice crystals shattered, Suicune was blown away. Chapter 1082, The Quarterfinals End. Suicune, stand up. Are you willing to fail like this? Yu couldn't help but shout as he watched Suicune, struggling to get up from the ground after being swatted away by the Tyrannosaurus Rex, flung him away. Hearing his trainers shout, Suicune's struggles intensified. He repeatedly propped himself up, trying to pull himself up. However, the rapidly draining strength within him made getting up, a task that normally seemed easy, extremely difficult. As his strength gradually drained, Suicune could no longer maintain his mega-evolved form. Suicune's consciousness began to fade, his strength dwindling, and he collapsed, slumping to the ground. Nobuno, it seems your strength has improved tremendously. Suicune was defeated by your Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was just a fluke. The Dragon Rider, Nobuno, was indeed quite self-aware, as if he saw the situation clearly. His Tyrannosaurus triumphed over his opponent Suicune due to certain advantages. Winning is winning. There's no such thing as a fluke, it's all about strength. Yu was quite open-minded. After all, Suicune's sacrifice wasn't in vain, Tyrannosaurus was already battered. Then I'll take victory in the next battle, and I'll take the semi-finals. Yu, don't brag. The outcome hasn't been decided yet, and the final result is still unknown. Don't brag too much, it's useless, Yulong and I retorted. Then we'll have to rely on our strength. Pikachu, win this semi-final for me. The league tournament had been going on for so long, and Yu finally sent Pikachu out for the first time. Yu, you finally sent out Pikachu. It's truly an honor for me. Yulong Zenai's expression gradually grew solemn. He knew that Pikachu might not match Suicune or Moltres in terms of strength and racial talent. However, Pikachu had been Yu's Pokémon the longest, and they had long since developed a strong rapport. In a sense, the power displayed by Pikachu at this moment was even more terrifying. Pikachu was particularly excited. It was finally his turn to take action. Watching his friends achieve various victories on the field for the past few days had already made him a little impatient. Without a trace of courtesy, he unleashed a single attack of 100,000 volts. Pikachu's fighting style hasn't changed. It's a quick attack from the start, Axolotl, dodge. Use Dragon Breath, Pikachu, use high-speed move, then Lightning Flash. Leveraging his inherent swiftness, Pikachu dodged Axolotl's Dragon Breath attacks one after another, and with his running advantage, he slammed into Axolotl through the instrument. However, even though Lightning Flash had landed, Pikachu was still too small and lacked the power. Lightning Flash bounced off Axolotl and bounced back. Good opportunity, Axolotl, use Dragon Tail, Pikachu, use Iron Tail. Axolotl's sudden attack was incredibly fast. Just as Dragon Tail was about to strike Pikachu, it sent him flying like a baseball. Pikachu also quickly shifted his form, spinning several times in mid-air before relaying his Iron Tail, which slashed down like a broadsword, aiming for the Tyrannosaurus's head. However, the attack was blocked by the sudden appearance of Dragon Tail. The two powerful melee attacks clashed fiercely. Even though Pikachu used the momentum of his fall to increase the power of Iron Tail, the force gradually increased, though it was only initially immense. Pikachu's small size ultimately disadvantaged him. And the Tyrannosaurus's counterattack sent him flying again. Great, that's how it works. Watching Pikachu being flung into the air by his own Tyrannosaurus, Nobuo couldn't help but smile. He saw that if he could defeat Pikachu, Yu's last remaining trump card, then perhaps he had a chance to turn the tables. I'll take your Dragon Tail, a somewhat cryptic message emanated from Yu's mouth. Pikachu, that's it. Use the forward attack. What? Even at this point, Yulong Zenai still hadn't reacted, and even Tyrannosaurus was the same. He could only watch helplessly as Pikachu unleashed a lightning-type attack from the sky. Even though he was flung into the air, with no foothold for his limbs, Pikachu continued to swing his short legs, charging through the air with all his might. His entire body was already covered in lightning. Pikachu, the combined speed of the volt attack and the speed of his fall, yes, the already swift descent was even faster. Even though Tyrannosaurus had reacted, it was too late to react. As the volt attack drew closer and closer to Tyrannosaurus, the lightning in its size grew brighter and brighter. In the end, the Tyrannosaurus instinctively used its dragon claws for defense, hoping to mitigate some of the damage. However, this thought ultimately proved to be a false alarm. While the volt attack was a skill that could injure both the attacker and the attacker, its undeniable power was immense. Amidst the roar of a massive explosion, smoke obscured the scene in mid-air. Then, two figures, one after the other, descended from the blast's plume. The first visible sight was the massive Tyrannosaurus's body, landing first, having already disengaged its Mega Evolution. Following closely behind, Pikachu's petite form landed precisely on the Tyrannosaurus's head. Even after using the Volt attack, Pikachu's face was clearly marked with a hint of pain. However, in this situation, Pikachu couldn't care less and peered directly into the Tyrannosaurus's eyes, fearing that he had lost his fighting ability. Fortunately, the Tyrannosaurus Rex has really lost its ability to fight. Chapter 1083, The Result of the Semifinals. That was brilliant. Molten's final move, a blast of flame, finished off the opponent's Bearcat. This was truly a fantastic match. Let's send our best wishes to the winner, Yu. This also marks the end of the semifinals, and the finals for the championship are about to begin. 2 days had passed since the quarterfinals. After the quarterfinals, Yulong Zinai felt somewhat disappointed that he didn't advance to the semifinals. However, for the optimistic and cheerful Yulong Zinai, this feeling came and went quickly. Especially since he had a superstar brother to comfort and guide him. Today also happened to be the day the semifinals concluded. Besides Yu himself, another person he knew also advanced to the semifinals, Yan Rong. However, Yu and his team weren't so lucky this time, and they didn't meet before the finals. Instead, they both faced 2 other semifinalists who had emerged from the finals. The contestants who emerged from hundreds of competitors and made it to the top 4 clearly showed that none of them were all equally skilled or exceptional. Therefore, despite the extremely difficult victory, Yu managed to defeat the opponent's Pokémon 4-6, using his final molters to eliminate them and advance to the finals. Meanwhile, Yan Rong, through the efforts of himself and his Pokémon, finally defeated his opponent and advanced to the finals. This meant that 2 familiar faces, who hadn't met before, would face off in the finals to claim the championship. Although today wasn't the finals, merely the semifinals for a spot on the finals, the atmosphere at the venue remained lively even after the semifinals concluded. The contestants had already left the venue and returned to the players' village to begin recovering. This was especially true for the 2 contestants who would compete in the finals 2 days later. Yu, I have a feeling it's you I'll be facing in the finals this time. Yan Rong, I'll definitely show no mercy then. Although both teams would begin competing for the championship in 2 days, after the semifinals, Yu and Yan Rong remained together. They emerged from the players' tunnel. Just as you said to Yulong Zinai before, let's fight a battle where neither of us has any regrets. Yes, I won't give up the championship throne so easily. The championship position isn't even yours yet. And I believe I will be the one to win it in the end. In that case, there's no point in saying more. Let's just wait and see. Yan Rong had already noticed Professor Oak and his group waiting for Yu at the entrance to the players' tunnel. He simply said hello and left without looking back. Yu, you're truly amazing, especially that Molter's finishing move with a blast of fire. It was so cool. Let's go, Yu. Today we're celebrating your advancement to the finals. As Yan Rong walked away, Xiaozhi and Xiaomao appeared from either side and threw their arms around Yu's neck. Having already won the semifinals and advanced to the finals, Xiaomao and Xiaozhi were both incredibly excited, as if they had truly won the match. I don't think I'll attend the celebration. I want to go check on Pikachu and the others. Yu hesitated for a moment, then finally voiced his thoughts. For a moment, the once lively atmosphere grew quiet and deserted. Everyone's eyes turned to Yu. Although they knew the finals in 2 days would be a significant pressure for him, under this pressure and urgency, Yu was determined to begin aligning himself with his Pokémon before the finals. But knowing and understanding are 2 different things. After all, this could be considered a rare celebration. Professor Oak, the oldest among the group, quickly sensed the uneasy atmosphere and echoed Yu's thoughts. Yu, come join us for the celebration. After all, you're the center of it, and don't rush your Pokémon training. You need a balance of work and rest. Pikachu and the others haven't had much rest since the tournament. Let's relax for the upcoming finals. Yu remained silent. After the competition, he handed the Pokémon's assigned tasks to Ms. Joy at the Pokémon Center. Yu's mind was truly filled with mixed emotions, as he was also preoccupied with matters concerning his Pokémon. Let's go, Yu. Professor Oak is right. It's time for Pikachu and the others to relax. Chen Kalin, a nominal relative to Yu, stepped forward to offer some counsel. That's right, you're a battle fanatic, but Pikachu and the others aren't. Even if you're an Iron Man, capable of sustained, intense combat, You shouldn't treat Pikachu and the others as if they were your own. Lizunar was also beginning to grow frustrated. While they were delighted that Yu had advanced to the finals, Yu's current state had them all worried. Why are you still talking so much nonsense with Yu? Xiaomao, come and lend a hand. Seeing Yu still seeming hesitant, Xiaozhi, the impatient Xiaozhi, couldn't wait any longer. After greeting him, Xiaomao, Xiaozhi's longtime G10 companion, though they had some issues, knew Xiaozhi best. Therefore, he immediately understood Xiaozhi's thoughts. Both of them, with ill intentions, quietly approached Yu, then grabbed him before he could react and headed towards the contestants' village. This, however, revealed just how turbulent Yu's mind was at that moment. You have to know that he is an extremely powerful warrior, and no movement can escape his perception, but he was still caught by the two weaklings Xiaomao and Xiaozhi. Chapter 1084 Tactical Thinking. The sky was dotted with stars. It was the same position, the same figure, the same extremely vicissitudes of life. But this time, Yu was no longer alone behind them. There were also his companions, Serena and the other girls, Satoshi, Shigeki, and Professor Oak. They didn't say anything to each other, but just stayed quietly by Yu's side, looking up at the stars and the bright moon in the sky. Do you know? At one time, I was only one step away from fulfilling my wish and dream. But it seemed so unreal to me. How can I describe this feeling? It's like a dream. The atmosphere in the field was silent for a long time, and Yu finally spoke at this time. Thinking back, I can still vividly remember the moment I first left Professor Oak's lab and arrived alone in the Kalos region. Memories keep resurfacing in my mind, as if I've already lived a lifetime. It seems so dreamy. The truth is, I've experienced so much on this journey, I've made so many friends, and encountered so many Pokémon. Yu's words were filled with emotion. Yes, indeed, the Pokémon journey is truly magical. I felt the same way when I was younger, but it's just that time has passed. Perhaps it's better. When we're used to separation, we long for another reunion. We can bravely forge ahead despite all the hardships. Perhaps this is the true character of every Pokémon trainer. Professor Oak then joined in the sentimental outpouring. Ouch! Senior sister, what are you doing? Yu was about to express her feelings a little more when she suddenly felt a pain on her face and glanced at the mischievous hands on her head. Why are you asking me this? You're so young and yet you're sighing like that. Do you really think you're as old as Professor Oak? Chen Kalin looked very annoyed, rubbing Yu's forehead with her index finger. Why do I feel inexplicably offended? Professor Oak's mouth twitched at this. That's what senior sister said. Yu, don't act so old at such a young age. You're like this now, what are we going to do? Lizunar also stepped forward, rubbing Yu's cheeks with both hands. Zunar, stop, your hands. Yu's cheeks were being rubbed, and he spoke a little unclearly. Huff, rubbing his cheeks, which seemed a little sore from the previous hard rubbing. Yu exhaled deeply. Okay, I get it. I'm just thinking about the tactics for the battle with Yanrong in 2 days. Don't gather around here, everyone. Yu seemed quite melancholy. He was just sitting here, alone, gazing at the stars and reflecting on life. How could he reflect on life with so many people watching him? Hey, aren't we seeing you feeling down and depressed? Why don't we team up to comfort you? Chen Kalin was, after all, closer and more familiar with Yu than anyone else present. Therefore, she was more relaxed. I'm so sorry for worrying you all. Yu finally realized what he was doing and quickly bowed an apology. Afterward, everyone left, relieved that Yu was alright. Xiaomao and Xiaozhi, why don't you two leave with us? What are you doing staying? Yu glanced sideways at Xiaozhi and Xiaomao, who sat on either side of him. Yu, didn't you just say that you were thinking about the tactics for 2 days later? I was thinking of staying and maybe I could help. Xiaozhi's right, this is the final. Once you win, you can get the championship trophy. So you should consider the parameters more seriously and think of a perfect tactic. Xiaomao also hurriedly agreed at this time. Tactics? Actually, there are no tactics in the battles between Pokémon. The only unchanging tactic is to be flexible. How can there not be? Tactics are a good thing that can make up for the lack of strength. For example, the sacrifice flow, the crushing flow, and the exchange flow are all very good tactics. Of course I know all this, but the situations on the battlefield are ever-changing. There may be some unexpected events, and it is impossible to win with unchanging tactics. Take Xiaozhi for example. Before you engage in a Pokemon battle, have you considered any tactics? Considering tactics? Does the attribute restraint of Pokemon count? Xiaozhi, you idiot. The attribute restraint of Pokemon? Isn't this the most basic common sense? How can it be considered a tactic? Xiaomao felt at this time that he was going to be stupid to death by his pig teammates. But you couldn't help but chuckle. Xiaomao, in Xiaozhi's opinion, Pokemon attribute counteractions are indeed a form of strategy. There are all kinds of strategies, and the sole purpose is to be able to use them. Of course I know that, but Xiaomao couldn't find the words to refute at that moment. He could only lean back with his hands, lie on the grass, and look at the stars. Xiaomao, Xiaozhi, you still have a long way to go. So, Yiyu, have you thought about your strategy for the next 2 days? Yes, I did just now, thanks to you too. We didn't do anything, and we didn't say anything. Xiaomao sat up again, a little curious. So what is your strategy? Can you tell us? Xiaozhi asked again. Yiyu simply raised his index finger to his lips. SHH. This is a secret. It won't work if you tell it. Besides, this is the strategy for the Pokemon battle in 2 days. If I tell it, and someone else hears and leaks it, I'll be doomed. Oh. That does make sense. Then Yiyu, don't tell it. Just write it down on a small piece of paper and show it to us. We'll destroy it immediately. Finally, under Xiaozhi and Xiaomao's persistent persuasion, Yiyu wrote his so-called strategy on a discarded piece of paper. However, after seeing the content of the small piece of paper, Xiaomao and Xiaozhi were both dissatisfied and rushed towards Yiyu. Yiyu, you're playing tricks on us again. A gentle breeze blew past, revealing that there was no strategy written on the paper. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1085, the beginning of the finals. 2 days flew by. The thrilling Kalos Regional Pokemon League finals finally began. Under the gaze of the crowd, Yiyu and Yanrong emerged from the contestant tunnels on either side. The commentator then gave a brief introduction. After all, they were the finalists vying for the championship and runner-up. After the commentator's introductions, the battleground selection process began. The random wheel spun, and the chosen battleground was once again the ordinary grass battleground. Alright, Yiyu, the battle between you and me has finally begun. Send out your Pokemon, Yanrong shouted first. Gyarados, I'll hand you the first one, so you're sending out a power-type Pokemon like Gyarados? Then the player I want to shoot at is his, Mega Iron Tyranitar, as expected, just as the data I've collected indicates. Yanrong's Pokemon are mostly rock and ground type. After seeing the opponent send out Mega Iron Tyranitar, Yuyu's mouth finally curled up slightly, a look of confidence in his victory. Gyarados uses Water Cannon. Yiyu, do you think that just because you've looked up my data and sent out a Pokemon with an X-type effect on my Pokemon, you'll definitely win? Since I'm brave enough to publish all my data, I must have a skill to prevent skills with counter effects. Metal Tyranitar uses Stone Attack, just as Yanrong had predicted. Facing the Water Cannon attack, which had a counter effect, the solid attack collided with a water bubble, directly blocking it. I knew checking data wasn't reliable. So, Gyarados, use your strengths and engage in melee combat. Yiyu, you're still the same. So, we can't fall behind. Mega Iron Tyrannosaurus, and so, a clash of strength, the two massive Pokemon once again engaged in a primal melee. This time, however, the melee was even more brutal and violent. With each attack, each Pokemon unleashed a melee skill. However, compared to Mega Iron Tyrannosaurus, Gyarados possessed a vast array of melee skills. He unleashed a series of combo skills, employing a variety of tactics that left Mega Iron Tyrannosaurus defenseless. However, Mega Iron Tyrannosaurus, with its exceptionally high defense, remained undeterred by the various melee attacks. Gyarados then demonstrated its physical strength. Despite its enormous size, its long training had enabled it to achieve the agility of a snake. Unleashing a powerful onyx-like binding attack, its entire body entwined itself around the Iron Tyrannosaurus like a thick vine, hoping to crush it with the immense power hidden within its body, securing another victory. However, Gyarados proved unrealistic. Completely entangled, the Iron Tyrannosaurus felt no discomfort at all. Instead, its massive arms held onto Gyarados with a firm grip, rendering it unable to move at all. Taking advantage of Gyarados' immobility, the Iron Tyrannosaurus unleashed its horn drill, piercing the dragon like an electric drill. But Gyarados was no pushover. Facing this sudden reversal of fortune, it unleashed Thunder Fang, biting back. The two attacks collided, resulting in a stalemate. For a moment, neither side was able to defeat the other. However, in the current situation, Gyarados was still in a relatively passive position. All that was left was a grip of the Titan Tyrannosaurus's massive arms. Then, with a springiness unbelievable for a creature of its size, it leaped with all its might, unleashing an earthquake. Because Gyarados possesses a flying attribute, it's invulnerable to ground-based earthquake attacks. However, this is due to its ability to levitate. But now, Gyarados was firmly grasped by the Titan Tyrannosaurus, its body tilted downwards as a cushion. Therefore, in this situation, Gyarados had no escape and completely withstood the earthquake. Under the effects of earthquake, Gyarados was powerless, completely reduced to a toy in the Titan Tyrannosaurus's hands. Gyarados, wake up. Use Destruction Beam, Yi shouted, hoping to summon his Gyarados back to life and continue the fight. But it was clear that Yi didn't possess even half the skill of Xiaozhi. Gyarados was still dazed, facing the relentless attacks of the Titanium Tyranitar, who pressed on with his victory, and could only passively take the beating. It's time to end this battle. I didn't expect to win the first round so easily. Yanrong, on the other hand, smiled confidently. It's not over yet. Don't be so sure. Everything is still uncertain. Yi remained confident in his Pokémon, believing they could pull off a miracle and turn defeat into victory. Meanwhile, Gyarados, whom Yi had placed such high hopes on, was still being hammered by the Titanium Tyranitar. Gyarados was accustomed to taking beatings, and even with such a devastating blow, it remained impervious to combat. Instead, the relentless pain rippled through its body, stimulating it to wake up. Although it had been dazed, it could still vaguely hear its trainer's commands. Therefore, without the slightest hesitation, the destruction and death rays were used directly at zero distance. In this kind of zero-distance situation, the destruction and death rays did not need to be charged for a long time. It could also cause great damage. Under the horrified eyes of the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus and the astonished eyes of Yanrong, the destruction and death rays were instantly fired at zero distance, and a huge explosion occurred. Under the aftermath of such a huge explosion, let alone the two Pokémon, which were already very close to each other, even if they were not so close, they would definitely lose their combat capabilities under the 100% hit rate. Isn't it? Gyarados and Super Iron Tyrannosaurus lost their combat capabilities at the same time. Chapter 1086 Emperor Nabo. Gyarados and Megaron are both incapacitated. The referee's voice chimed in at the perfect moment. Neither Yu nor Yanrong had anticipated how their opening match would end. Without further ado, they each sent out their second participating Pokémon. Armored Bird, come out and prepare for battle. Molten, ha, it seems victory is firmly on my side this time. Yiyu's expression was smug. His molters completely outmatched Armored Bird in every way possible. Even Yanrong himself didn't deny this. If the opponent didn't send molters, it would be fine. But if they did, molters would, in some ways, crush Armored Bird. Even in the single area of strength that could be surpassed, molters was on par with Armored Bird. Beyond that single area of strength, there was no other way to surpass him. Even though I may already know I'll lose, I still want to pit my Armored Bird against your molters to see the true power gap between the two Pokémon. Yanrong spoke his mind directly. A truly powerful Pokémon trainer must bravely forge ahead and fight, no matter what difficulties or adversities they face. This is the true spirit of a Pokémon trainer. Even knowing defeat, one must still forge ahead. Yu was deeply impressed by Yanrong's spirit and courage. Alright. Molters, let's bring out our full strength and show them what we're capable of. Molten, use Charged Flame attack. Armored Bird, use Wind attack. The two Pokémon engaged in a mid-air duel, often accompanied by collisions. Chains of white light flashed, and massive balls of flame collided. In this first encounter, the two Pokémon were evenly matched. However, both Pokémon were flying type, and both were known for their speed. After a brief separation, they clashed once again, this time using melee skills. In melee combat, Armorbird surprisingly didn't seem to have the upper hand. But think about it, it was just Armorbird's sturdier frame. But Moltres wasn't to be trifled with either. Several jets of flame scorched the air at close range. Armorbird was unlucky and suffered burns. This burn state exacerbated Armorbird's already disadvantageous situation. As expected, after several attacks, Armorbird began to lose. After unleashing a powerful, enchanted attack with explosive damage, which dealt a powerful, high-impact damage, Armorbird was instantly rendered incapacitated. Your Moltres is indeed very powerful, but that's entirely because Armorbird is in a passive state of restraint. So, you won't be able to defeat me in the next battle. Yanrong wasn't the least bit surprised by Armorbird's defeat, as if it had been a foregone conclusion. Really, as Yu finished speaking, Moltres, which had been soaring in the air, was retrieved into his Pokeball. What are you doing? Oh. This is a rare event. I plan to have every one of my Pokemon go out and battle. After all, we've been training for so long, and this is all we've been waiting for. That's fine. Let me see the strength of all your Pokemon. Yanrong was also now interested, filled with excitement at the chance to battle every Pokemon in Yu's possession. Then I'll leave the Imperial Naboo in your care this time. Huh? You actually sent out the Water-type Imperial Naboo? It seems the information isn't always accurate. Haha, Yu, aren't you surprised? Since I dared to disclose my information, I must have made all the necessary preparations. But you're quite clever. Recalling Moltres beforehand, as for the Imperial Naboo, then Pikachu's in your care. The Pikachu you sent out, I didn't expect you, Yu, to be so well behaved, even going for the attribute counter strategy. What's wrong with attribute counter strategy? It's called steady and cautious. Pikachu uses Lightning Flash, Imperial Naboo uses Peck. The two Pokemon had only just begun their clash, both using their full strength, without holding back. However, Pikachu's smaller size disadvantaged him in this clash, and the Imperial Naboo's more powerful impact sent him flying. However, he managed to maneuver his body mid-air and used 100,000 volts. Emperor Nabo uses Drill. At this moment, the Emperor Nabo used the trident-like crown on its head to spin like a top. 100,000 volts struck the Emperor Nabo. At this high-speed spin, the 100,000 volts were directly deflected. The Emperor Nabo's move, like a Blastoise's high-speed spin, served as both an offensive and defensive attack. Faced with this attack, Pikachu was momentarily completely helpless against the Emperor Nabo. He could only exploit his speed and agility to dodge. But the Emperor Nabo was no match for Pikachu, its speed rivaling Pikachu's. Several times, while dodging and counterattacking, Pikachu was nearly caught up by the Emperor Nabo. Pikachu, use Iron Tail. I knew to use Melee. Emperor Nabo uses Alloy Claws. The sound of metal clashing continued. During these exchanges, the two seemed evenly matched. But anyone thinking this was a stalemate would be mistaken. King Naboo, while simultaneously using his Alloy Claws to block an attack, unexpectedly launched his attack towards Pikachu, stomping on the ground and using the momentum to launch himself mid-air. Caught off guard, Pikachu crashed to the ground, ricocheting backwards like a skipping stone. Chapter 1087 Silly Hippo. Under King Nabo's ferocious attacks, Pikachu was steadily defeated. However, the ferocity of King Nabo's attacks also meant that he consumed a great deal of his stamina. Both the attacker and the defender were already panting. Both sides relied on their perseverance to keep each other in the fight. Really? Why do you have to force me like this? Well, in that case, Pikachu, use Volt Attack. Are you planning on deciding the outcome in one move? Interesting. I accept your challenge. King Nabo uses Hydro Cannon. Facing the incoming Hydro Cannon, Pikachu sprinted towards the Volt Attack, causing the surrounding lightning to shift backwards. However, even with a powerful Hydro Cannon's impact, Pikachu continued to pulse its short limbs, charging forward. The collision of water and lightning intensified the lightning surrounding the Volt Attack. Even with Pikachu's electrical properties, he still felt waves of discomfort while resisting the Volt Attack. But at this point, Pikachu couldn't afford to pause or falter. Only through a relentless charge could it achieve a comeback. And so, bracing itself against the Hydro Telekinesis, Pikachu swung its short legs even harder. Finally, Pikachu achieved its goal. The clash of the two Pokemon's abilities created a massive explosion, completely engulfing both. Just as everyone had come to their senses, they thought it was another mutually assured destruction, when movement appeared in the dust. Wisps of smoke billowed, revealing the figure of the Emperor Naboo. Then, the aftermath of the explosion began to rise, gradually revealing the figure and situation within the dust. By this time, the clash between the Emperor Naboo and Pikachu had subsided, and it was Pikachu who ultimately fell. As for the Imperial Nabob, upon seeing its opponent incapacitated, it didn't follow suit as expected. Instead, it half knelt on the ground, panting, clearly exhausted. Pikachu, you've worked hard. Come back and rest. You didn't blame Pikachu too much for his defeat. He walked to the center of the field, gently carried Pikachu out, and rested. So, Yu, what Pokemon will you send out next? Yanrong spoke as he put his Imperial Nabob back in, letting him rest. Of course, it's you, Charizard, another powerful Pokemon. But I knew you'd send out a Fire-type Pokemon. So, prepare to fight, Hippopotamus. Out of caution, Yanrong had already prepared for both scenarios. Besides the Imperial Nabob, which was now suffering from a significant loss of stamina, he sent out another Water-type Pokemon, but this time, Hippopotamus was significantly more formidable. Because this Hippopotamus, in addition to its Water-type ability, also possessed a Psychic-type ability. Psychic types were widely considered the most formidable of all Pokemon. But now that things had come to this, what was the point in retreating? Unfazed by the prospect of being completely dominated by a Psychic type, Yu decided to follow Yanrong's instructions. Charizard, use Flame Jet. Hippopotamus, use Telekinesis, followed by Water Cannon. Facing Charizard's Flame Jet, Hippopotamus didn't even attempt to dodge. He used his Psychic-type Telekinesis to completely control Charizard's Flame Jet. Furthermore, Charizard's entire body was instantly restrained by the force of the surface. With Charizard's body completely restrained, it was like a piece of meat being beaten. Hippopotamus Water Cannon followed suit, instantly hitting Charizard's nodules. With just this one move, the Water Cannon attack instantly slammed the energetic Charizard, which had just appeared, into the ground. However, Charizard, true to its energy, even with its incredibly effective Water Cannon, seemed to have no effect. It spread its vast wings once again and soared into the sky once more. This time, Charizard was even more ferocious. The wing attack was unleashed without Yu even giving the order, and not only that, but its two short claws were also used. At this moment, it also unleashed its Dragon Claw skill, its tail giving up its emerald green glow and unleashing another Dragon Tail move. It was clear that Charizard's combat awareness and instincts were truly formidable. Despite only a single skill command from its trainer, it was able to unleash a series of skills on its own to counter the enemy. Facing the ferocious Charizard, Sluggish Hippo once again used Telekinesis, Phantom Light, and other Psychic-type skills to restrain it, but to no avail. The aura Charizard displayed at that moment was simply too ferocious. Those mental restraints couldn't hold up for long against Charizard's ferocious attack. Charizard's attack was so ferocious that it closed in on Hippo King in a matter of seconds. Under these circumstances, Hippo King had assumed he would simply surrender and accept Charizard's attack. However, what followed proved him wrong. As Charizard drew closer, Hippo King, seeing his psychic abilities ineffective, switched to melee attacks. A merciless million-ton punch slammed directly into Charizard's face. He hadn't anticipated Hippo King's counterattack with a melee attack. He was caught off guard, but Charizard was nothing but Charizard. Despite suffering a minor setback, Hippo King attacked. 3 consecutive hits sent Hippo King stumbling backwards. Rumor has it that any Psychic-type Pokemon possesses extremely high intelligence. There's a grain of truth to that. Without even needing any proper orders from its trainer, Hippopotamus actually began thinking independently about what to order, mimicking Charizard's movements. Chapter 1088 Reversal. Even though Hippopotamus had a significant advantage over Charizard in terms of attributes, when they faced each other in close combat, Hippopotamus was constantly losing ground, while Charizard maintained a steady rhythm of attack, attacking again and again. Charizard used Sparks of Fire. With the absolute advantage, Yu gave Charizard a command that left everyone completely baffled. What kind of skill is this? Yanrong was startled, watching Charizard with vigilance, fearing what the opponent might unleash. However, despite having the absolute advantage, Charizard gave up pursuing the attack. Instead, it soared to considerable height and unleashed a jet of fire at the grass below. The flames alone ignited the grass like a wildfire, unstoppable. In a matter of moments, the entire grass was engulfed in flames. The only area not completely engulfed was where Hippopotamus stood. The intense heat of the surrounding flames caused a few drops of sweat to drip down Hippo's forehead. You, what's this tactic of yours? You think you can stop Hippo like this? You're truly naive. Putting aside Hippo's water attribute, just his psychic attribute alone means he doesn't even need to move. Hippo, use the water gun to put out all those flames. Hahaha, of course I know that, but I was just waiting for this moment. What? Upon receiving his trainer's order, Hippo immediately unleashed his water gun skill, spraying the surrounding area with water to extinguish the flames. As the water gun began to extinguish the flames, a large amount of steam immediately erupted, obscuring all vision. The steam even enveloped Hippo. Oh no! Hippo, quickly use your telekinesis to fly yourself out. Yanrong finally realized the situation was dire. You've only just realized it now, but it's already too late. Charizard, use Fire Whirlpool, then use Big Bang. You use Charizard, having frequently battled in varying temperatures, had long since developed the ability to sense the body heat of certain Pokémon. Using this ability, even when vision was obstructed, it could still accurately locate Slowpoke. Perhaps due to its water element, Slowpoke's body temperature wasn't particularly high, but under the scorching heat, it blazed like the sun in the darkness. However, even though Slowpoke had used telekinesis to envelop itself, it was still trapped by the vortex of fire. Slowpoke, good opportunity, use water cannon. Amidst the smoke and flames, a single water dragon broke through the numerous obstacles and attacked the tiny flame within. Then, only Charizard's screams could be heard, accompanied by the dull clash of two flames. The powerful aftermath of the two attacks blew away the surrounding smoke, revealing their true forms. Charizard, previously charging with fury, was now drenched and slumped to the ground like a drowned rat. The same happened to Hippopotamus, but Hippopotamus was fortunate to have been burned by the constant barrage of fire-type attacks. Yiyu's eyes lit up with delight at the sight of this burning effect. After all, with this burning effect, even if no further battle was fought, Hippopotamus could be worn down. However, this wasn't the style of Yiyu and his Pokémon. Therefore, he resumed commanding Charizard in the fight. However, after Charizard had taken several powerful hits, even the energetic Charizard was severely depleted. I didn't expect the heavens to be on your side. So, Hippopotamus, come back and rest for a while. Seeing the situation was dire, Yanrong immediately reclaimed his Hippopotamus. Although a Pokémon caught in the burning state of contemplation would remain burned after being returned to its Pokéball, at least the process wouldn't drain too much of its energy. I'll leave the Imperial Naboo to you once more. Send out the Imperial Naboo? Then Charizard can finish it off in one fell swoop. At this point, the Imperial Naboo was still quite weak, its strength still far from restored. Its body was still covered in wounds, and even a short period of recuperation in its Pokéball could only force it to perk up. Ouch! Charizard's injuries didn't weaken him at all, instead, they intensified his frenzy. His piercing eyes blazed like two blazing flames. Charizard, use Dragon Breath. Emperor Nabo, use Water Cannon. Charizard, dodge, then use Dragon Claw. Emperor Nabo, use Drill. Leveraging his considerable stamina, Charizard dodged Emperor Nabo's drill. Then, the Dragon Claw struck Emperor Nabo mercilessly. The blow sent Emperor Nabo spinning like a top through the air, only to feel a sharp pain. But with unwavering willpower, he pushed forward and engaged Charizard in a fierce duel. Entangled by Emperor Nabo, Charizard's wings were now unable to unfold, forcing him to engage in a relentless, physical battle. However, in this fierce, physical battle, Emperor Nabo was ultimately rendered incapable of fighting. With this reversal of circumstances, while Emperor Nabo had lost his ability to fight, Charizard had little remaining stamina. Since Yanrong's three Pokémon were the first to lose their ability to fight, we entered a halftime break and switched to a new battlefield. Following this brief halftime break, the original grass field was transformed into a water field. Chapter 1089 Venusaur. The Water Arena? This might be a good opportunity. But it might also be a disadvantage for me. Yanrong, who was resting next to him, watched the water arena being replaced by the grass arena. His eyes flickered, as if he had made a crucial decision. A water arena? This might be good news for me, too. He was also considering how to effectively utilize the water arena to defeat the opponent. As the water arena gradually completed, the battle between Yanrong and Yiyu was about to begin again. Molten, I'll leave Moltres to you this time. Hippopotamus, I'll trouble you once more. Yanrong sent out Hippopotamus, who had been burned in the previous battle with Charizard. Yiyu chose Moltres, who hadn't consumed much energy in the previous battle. Molten, use Flame Jet. Hippopotamus, use Water Cannon. Just like the opening, the battle unfolded again, with both Pokemon unleashing their most powerful abilities. However, Moltres wasn't like Charizard, which was already running low on stamina. Its energy was incredibly strong. Perhaps Moltres knew its own weaknesses, so it didn't rush in like Charizard, instead using ranged abilities repeatedly to wear down Hippopotamus. Under normal circumstances, Yiyu wouldn't have been so conservative, and might even have proactively ordered Moltres to charge forward. But this was the League Finals, a battle for the Soul Championship. Mistakes in this single battle couldn't be made, as they could affect subsequent battles. A negative impact on the championship meant losing the championship. Therefore, Yiyu preferred Moltres' tactics, playing it safe and wearing down the opposing Pokemon. While Moltres continuously used long-range attacks like Flame Spray, Hippopotamus had to constantly use his abilities to guard against Moltres' attacks, all the while enduring the burning effects and the continuous damage. No, we can't stay this passive. If we keep this up, the Hippopotamus will probably be worn down to death by the living. Hippopotamus used telekinesis to target the surrounding water fields. Yanrong finally began to take countermeasures. Hippopotamus directly used telekinesis. Under the control of invisible telekinesis, the water in the surrounding pools of water fields was completely controlled and gradually drawn out. The water was directly condensed into a water dragon. This was not a water cannon, but a real water dragon. Using telekinesis to control water to form a water dragon, I didn't expect telekinesis to be so practical. The water dragon, formed by telekinesis, aimed at Moltres. The water dragon danced in the air, twisting its body, aiming straight at Moltres. Moltres circled it, circling it. Waiting for Moltres to show the slightest flaw, it would launch a fierce attack. This water dragon is truly troublesome. I didn't expect psychic abilities to be so formidable. And this time, we're in a water zone, where the water supply is practically inexhaustible. Yiyu's brows knitted together, feeling completely overwhelmed. The situation was simply too challenging for him. Even if Moltres could evaporate the surrounding water with the intense heat of her flames, the water zone wasn't just a promise. Looks like this is the only way to try. For ultimate victory, Moltres, bring out your might. Forced into a corner, Yiyu seemed to be cornered. Moltres, used charged flame attack. Yiyu finally decided to give it a try. Moltres was in such a desperate situation. And he believed that if the situation dragged on any longer, the first person to lose their ability to fight might not be the burning hippopotamus, but Moltres. Therefore, given the situation, he had no choice but to give it a try. Moltres had already launched his attack. Hippo immediately controlled Water Dragon to attack Moltres. The collision between Moltres and Water Dragon was clearly visible as the flames surrounding Moltres, which had launched a charged flame attack, began to gradually diminish. However, this still couldn't stop the charge unleashed by Flame Sprout. The two Pokemon clashed fiercely, their willpower determined. However, when it came to a battle of willpower, Yiyu's Pokemon was practically on par with any other. Enduring the discomfort of the water pouring down on him, Moltres' charged flame finally struck Hippo. In a split second, Hippo, who had been battling with his willpower, was practically rendered incapable of fighting. This scene stunned not only the spectators but also the two players witnessing it firsthand. But on reflection, it was understandable, considering Moltres hadn't expended much energy in its earlier battle with Armorbird. On the other hand, Slowpoke had already depleted most of its stamina in its previous battle with Charizard, and it was also suffering from the effects of the burning. To keep Moltres trapped, it had been using telekinesis for extended periods to drain his mental energy. With all these factors stacked together, it was unlikely that Moltres would not lose its fighting capacity. But Moltres was also in a difficult situation. To successfully disable Slowpoke, Moltres had to endure a wave of water, which it disliked. Slowpoke, come back and rest. Yiyu, you and your Pokemon are truly amazing. You've grown so much? You managed to push me to this point. Haha, not bad, not bad, it's just average, Yiyu said as he replaced his Moltres and sent out his Flamahawk. Alice, I didn't expect to be pushed to this point. I'll leave the rest of the battle for Venusaur in your hands. Although the battle was a water battle, the water team wasn't entirely a water team. Several artificial rock formations were built into the ground. Although it cannot accommodate large-scale activities of Pokémon, it at least provides enough space for Bulbasaur to fight. Chapter 1090 The Power of Venusaur. Is it Venusaur this time? But even if it's Venusaur, what can it do? Although this is a water zone, I have the advantage in Pokémon stats. Really? In that case, then give it your all. Maiahua, show me your strength. Both sides were extremely confident in their Pokémon. Although Moltres and Slender had already engaged in a fierce battle before this, which had consumed a great deal of their stamina, they should still be able to fight given their stat advantage. With this in mind, Yu was still confident in his chances of survival. Vulpes, use Leaf Blade. Molten, use Flame Jet. Sparks ignited in the air, the traces of the flames burning Leaf Blade. Although Flame Jet burned Leaf Blade was able to block Flame Jet's attack. Moltres followed suit, launching a charged flame attack, hoping to once again win by trading damage for damage. But having just experienced this before, Yanrong was already prepared. How could he let it have its way? Vulpes, use your Vine Whip to stop it. Unlike Bulbasaur and Ivysaur, Venusaur's Vine Lock consisted of 4 strands. Each one was precisely controlled, darting out like bullets from a gun. Even without the proper Vine Whip lock, the sheer force of its power was enough to rival Moltres. What? How could this be? The Venusaur across from me isn't afraid of Moltres' flames, Yu exclaimed in shock. You see, compared to the flames emitted by ordinary Pokémon, the flames emitted by a legendary beast like Moltres require a higher level. Yet, even with such a high-level flame, the Venusaur across from me seemed oblivious to the scorching heat. Like 4 bullets fired simultaneously, the 4 vines aimed directly at the oncoming Moltres. Zhang Bin, without hesitation, pierced the searing flames, striking Moltres with a striking force that felt incredibly realistic. Moltres, previously charging forward, was instantly halted. The 4 vines, like 4 hemp ropes, tightly entangled Moltres, no matter how hard it tried to increase the heat of the flames. As the vines tightened, their force gradually increased. Moltres' flames gradually dwindled and dissipated. The effects of the charged flame attack were forcibly interrupted. Flame, Moltres' form was completely exposed to the air, as if she were in trouble. She was instantly bound in midair from 4 angles. Underestimating my Venusaur will only bring you harm. I've already trained my Venusaur to peak strength in every way. Even Wicker can pierce boulders with ease, let alone your Moltres. Yanrong felt a sense of relief at this point. After all, he'd been on the defensive for the entire battle. But even if Moltres is controlled by Venusaur, wouldn't your Venusaur be unable to attack? Really? You're completely mistaken. Meowhuahu. Show them your power. Hua leaves once again flew from the massive flower on Venusaur's back, aiming directly at Moltres, which was held in midair. This time, there was no charged flame attack to protect it. Even though Venusaur still had a faint flame on its body, it was already scarred by the Leaf Blade's attack. What? Jik uses Leaf Blade in this situation, are you surprised? The best is yet to come. Vulpes uses Solar Blade. What? Damn it, Moltres. Hurry and break free. However, Moltres, pinned in midair, continued to be entangled in the vines, tightening even more. Even as Solar Blade charged, Moltres remained unable to escape the vines. Solar Blade had already begun firing, thanks to Venusaur's preparations. Malcedo can't just sit there and wait for death. Use Big Bang, then use Jet Flame on the 4 vines. Due to the clear weather above the venue, Solar Blade's charging time was significantly reduced and its power was significantly increased. Facing the large character poster, it was like piercing thin paper. Despite some resistance, it was swiftly pierced. However, Moltres, taking advantage of the brief moment when Mega Blast blocked the sunburst, launched a jet of flame at Bulbasaur's 4 vines. The jet of flame, clinging to the vines, gradually spread towards the other end of Bulbasaur's giant flower. At this point, with Sunburst and Mega Blast still locked in a battle, it was too late to retract the vines, leaving Bulbasaur to endure the pain and burns, along with the pain radiating from its own body. Moltres, unable to fight, fell from the sky onto a floating platform on the other side. This sunburst is truly powerful. Thank you for your hard work, Moltres. Charizard, I'll be counting on you one more time. After retrieving Moltres, Yu sent out the next Pokémon, none of which were at full strength. He sent out Charizard, who had previously experienced intense battles. Why are you still planning on using your stat advantage? I told you long ago that this won't work. A mere stat advantage isn't worth mentioning for Venusaur, really? That's not necessarily true. Charizard uses Jet Flame, Vulpes uses Leaf Blade, just like the previous battle with Moltres. This time, the clash of two identical skills ended in a draw. Immediately following, Venusaur unleashed 4 more Vine Weaves, blocking Charizard from these 4 directions. The same trick again? I won't suffer a second loss. Chapter 1091, Suicune enters the stage. As expected, Bulbasaur then deployed the same tactics as the previous party. 4 vines followed closely behind, wrapping themselves around Charizard. Although it had been prepared, the vines were too swift, instantly entangling Charizard. However, this Charizard was no frail Pokémon like Moltres, specialized in speed attacks. Charizard itself was more than just a mobile turret, it possessed immense strength. Facing its entire body, Charizard first struggled to free its wings. Then, with a flurry of flaps, Bulbasaur, wielding its vines, was even lifted off the board beneath its feet. Furthermore, Charizard's resistance was even more fierce. Even with its dwindling strength, it continued to fire streams of flame, following the path Moltres had left. Oh no, Bulbasaur, quickly retract the vines. Yanrong had already realized something was amiss and quickly gave Bulbasaur an order. Did you finally notice? It's a shame we're still a step too late. Charizard, don't let him get away. Ouch, a roar echoed. Charizard's short arms, swift and quick, grabbed the vines as it was about to withdraw, pinning him down. For a moment, the situation became a test of strength. Bulbasaur tried to retract his vines, but Charizard held on tightly. Furthermore, fearing his hands would dislodge the vines, Charizard opened his mouth and bit them. Well done. That's how Charizard uses Earth Throw, while he didn't hold the enemy tightly like he did on Earth. In this situation, grabbing the vines was enough. Using the force of the Earth, Charizard temporarily boosted his strength. After another spin, Charizard unhesitatingly flung Venusaur off the float. Venusaur's massive form instantly crashed into the pool, sending up a massive wave of water. Your Charizard certainly surprised me with its prowess, but what good is it now? Venusaur, soaking wet, should have developed some resistance to me. You're naive. My Charizard's flames can melt even stone. Just like your Venusaur's wickerwork, they've been refined to perfection. If you don't believe me, try it. Charizard, use Jet Fire. Due to its immense size, Venusaur was momentarily unable to return to the float and had to rely on the wickerwork. However, taking advantage of this opening, Charizard launched a Jet Fire attack. Just as you had predicted, even submerged in water, Venusaur could still feel the burning pain from the Jet Fire attack. Vulpes, hold on, climb onto the float, then use Solar Beam. Charizard, counterattack with Flame Jet. Venusaur, enduring the pain, braved Charizard's renewed attack. However, Charizard was prepared. After dodging Solar Beam, it launched another Flame Jet, blasting directly at Venusaur. Its flight gave it an air superiority, and it launched repeated attacks at the somewhat clumsy Venusaur. Tisk, do you think this will work on my Venusaur? Venusaur, use photosynthesis. Upon receiving its master's command, Venusaur immediately took advantage of the clear weather and activated photosynthesis. Its wounds began to heal at a visible rate, though a tiny spark of fire began to appear. Venusaur, having just recovered from photosynthesis, howled in agony at the burning sensation. How is this possible? It's the burn status again. You're so lucky. Yanrong saw clearly that Bulbasaur had clearly caught the same burn status that his Pokémon had inflicted before. In particular, the injuries suffered by his previous Pokémon were almost all caused by this Charizard. If he was not mistaken, this Charizard's ability should be Fierce Fire, but he hadn't expected it to have such a bonus against the burn status. While in the burn status, neither retrieving the Pokéball nor photosynthesis, a skill that restores health, would have any effect. Tisk, do you really think Charizard was just lucky? While luck may have played a 50% role, the other 50% was caused by the repeated fireballs. You also saw the look of relief on the burn status face of Bulbasaur. I underestimated you a bit. Luck certainly plays a role, but the majority of it comes from your own hard work. But what does it matter? Even if my Venusaur gets burned, your Charizard won't fare any better, really? Then wait and see. Charizard uses Jet Flame. Vulpes uses Solar Blaze, perhaps because of the prolonged battle. Charizard had expended too much energy. Facing Solar Blaze's attacks, it could no longer dodge with the ease it had just wielded. It could only use Jet Flame to counteract Solar Blaze, attempting to neutralize it. However, the clear weather only made Solar Blaze even more powerful. Jet Flame and Solar Blaze held their ground for a moment before Jet Flame was directly hit by Solar Blaze. Charizard, no longer able to dodge, was struck by Solar Blaze and fell. Fortunately, Charizard landed on one of the floating platforms in the water battle area when it fell. This saved Charizard from the danger of water. Your Bulbasaur is indeed very powerful. But the battle should be over soon. He can't wait too long for the championship trophy. Suicune, come out and fight. Are you planning to use your trump card? Yes, Suicune, it's time to end this battle. Besides, your Bulbasaur is still suffering from burns. Chapter 1092 Unfavorable. As you finished speaking, the burning sensation resurfaced on Venusaur. Because it was a grass type, this burning sensation was even more painful and fatal for Venusaur. It seems that rain and people are all on my side. It's going to be hard for me to lose this battle, isn't it? Navy. This is your home turf, don't let me down. Yanrong hadn't initially noticed the results, but after being reminded of them, his expression darkened. It was indeed just as he'd said. All three elements, time, location, and people, were on Yu Yu's side. The first element of people was two fully powered Pokémon. The terrain favored the Navy's water battleground. As for the remaining factor, timing, if you carefully calculated it, it should be relatively favorable for both sides, but more so for the grass-type Venusaur. Suicune, worthy of being the embodiment of the North Wind and a legendary water beast, appeared in the water battleground, not on a paddleboard like Venusaur, but walking on the surface. Walking on the water felt like stepping on the ground, incredibly stable. Suicune, seemingly trying to acclimate himself to the surface of the water battle, first took a few slow steps, then began to stretch his limbs and run across the water. At that moment, Venusaur happened to be suffering from burns, and Suicune, quick-witted and quick-handed, launched a freeze beam at Venusaur. Coincidentally, the freeze beam not only struck Venusaur's body, but also its limbs. The powerful ice energy enveloped Venusaur's limbs, freezing it firmly to its original float. Its limbs were unable to move, preventing it from making any evasive movements. That's great, Suicune. Keep using freeze beam, I won't let you succeed. Venusaur, use your vine whip, it's no use. Your sight is no match for Suicune, who is so agile on the surface. Yu was full of confidence in Suicune's ability to fight on the surface. Really? The four vines that had originally attacked weren't aimed at Suicune, but instead lashed the water surface. They seemed to have transformed into four boats, constantly moving. Venusaur, with its ability to control its size, shifted left and right, dodging Suicune's attacks. That's quite a trick. Then Suicune, use your freeze beam to freeze the entire surface of the water. Yu couldn't help but feel a slight headache. This Venusaur was surprisingly difficult to deal with. However, Venusaur, despite its formidable nature, couldn't use any other skills while dodging Suicune, so it could only silently endure the lingering damage from the burns. Meanwhile, Suicune had already launched his attack, but because the float couldn't move, the four vines, like bullets, kept blocking his way. But Suicune, like a nimble fish, deftly dodged the vines' entanglements and attacks. Then, he unleashed his Ice Fang, directly descending upon Venusaur's Vasaro and beginning to bite. The combined force of ice and fire dealt Venusaur immense damage. Unsurprisingly, Venusaur barely managed a moment of resistance before losing its ability to fight under Suicune's frenzied assault. Vulpes has been rendered incapable of combat just like that. Yanrong rubbed his eyes, a little unsure. It was only seconds before Suicune's arrival. But there was no time for further reflection. He immediately dispatched with Steelix. This was his final trump card, and also his most powerful Pokémon. So, the last one is Steelix? Then let's have a full-scale battle, okay? A final battle for the championship. I'm willing to fight to the bitter end. Steelix Mega Evolves, Suicune Mega Evolves, two flashes of light flashed, and both Pokémon Mega Evolved. A fierce clash was about to begin. However, even as everyone was thinking this, a rather awkward moment occurred on the field. Because they were in the water arena, the ground-type Steelix was completely unable to maneuver. While there were floating decks above the water arena, allowing non-water-type Pokémon to maneuver, their area was limited. Furthermore, The few floating decks on the water arena had already been shattered by the fierce fighting, leaving only a few remaining. Even if they were put together, they wouldn't even be enough for Steelix to maneuver. Steelix was simply too massive, especially a mega-evolved Steelix. Damn it! I miscalculated. Now, you have the right time, right place, and right people. Yanrong realized the severity of the situation and sensed something was amiss. How isn't luck a part of strength? Yu laughed heartily. After all, the more disadvantageous the opponent, the better it was for him. Never mind. Even if the right time, right place, and right people are all on your side, what does it matter? Steelix, I believe you can overcome all odds and win this time, then bring it on. This time, the championship is definitely mine. Alright, whatever happens, let's decide the outcome in this battle. Both sides tacitly agreed not to request a change of venue. As previously mentioned, luck is also a part of strength. Moreover, as a trainer, one must be prepared for any situation. Furthermore, this Pokemon battle was inherently fair. It was just that Yanrong had miscalculated and drawn the water venue. Any other venue would have given Steelix room to shine, but it just had to be water. Both of them were considered honest people, but at this point, even Yu, who had the upper hand, didn't take the initiative to propose a change of venue. This was all due to the mutual pride between the two trainers, and the passion for being able to compete on this sacred stage. Chapter 1093, Winner. This is so unfair to my brother. Indeed, Steelix has a ground attribute, but how can he fight in this arena? This is obviously unfair. The audience members in the stands were also discussing the situation. Even Xiaozin, Yanyi, and Yulongzin were no exception. Xiaozin and Yanyi were the most excited. Professor Oak, why didn't my brother ask the referee to change the arena? Yanyi looked at Professor Oak, the most prestigious among them, his eyes filled with anxiety. Yet, why didn't you take the initiative? He doesn't seem like the type to take advantage of others. Xiaozhi also couldn't wait to join in the discussion. However, after hearing the two people's questions, Professor Oak's expression became extremely gloomy. Even Dian Wangdu, who had just arrived to watch the match, had a gloomy expression. In the end, it was Professor Oak who spoke first. He directly revealed all his speculations from the previous chapter, adding, "There's no point in saying anything else. Only by fighting with all our might can we live up to each other. I think this is what both trainers agreed on long before this battle began. You must remember that both society and the Pokemon world are cruel. And battles are never completely fair, especially in a large-scale league tournament like this, where neither side has violated any rules. If I had to say anything, I'd say Yanrong is just incredibly unlucky." Du folded his arms, his face serious. He seemed to be speaking to his younger brother, but in reality, he was addressing the group around him. "That, we understand, I'm enlightened." Xiaozhi and the others were deeply moved by these words. This also laid an important foundation for their future as formidable Pokemon trainers. Indeed, battles between Pokemon are inherently brutal. Indeed, Pokemon battles aren't affected by any factors. So, how could a battle between two Pokemon affect each other? Even if there were, it would likely be due to a problem with one of the two Pokemon. That's a possibility, but only a possibility. As Professor Oak sighed, the battle on the field was about to begin. Because the battlefield was entirely water-based, it was extremely disadvantageous for Steelix, with its ground-based attributes. Unlike the ground-based battlefield drawn in this water battle, the surface of the water consisted of only a few floating boards, and after the previous battle, the floating boards were scarce. What are you going to do? Steelix, completely restricted in its movements, is practically a sitting duck for my navy. Suicune, use water cannon and treat Steelix well. Steelix, dodge, then use stone attack. Because Suicune had previously used freeze beam, the surface of the water had frozen in a few spots, and with the floating boards, it was barely enough for Steelix to dodge. A barrage of sharp rocks swept towards Suicune like a machine gun. However, Suicune, navigating the water, was incredibly agile, dodging the attacks with a few quick leaps. The rocks that didn't hit Suicune slammed into the water, creating a cascade of splashes. You're actually taking advantage of the ice from before? If so, Suicune, use your water cannon and shatter all that ice. Yu realized this and quickly gave Suicune the order. Suicune, without hesitation, unleashed his water cannon, attacking Steelix. However, this time, Steelix didn't dodge the water cannon again. Instead, It deflected the water cannon's attack. What kind of tactic is this? Are you using your body to carry a cannon? You have a plan, but I have a ladder. Steelix will use its iron tail to block it. Yanrong knew that the ice formed around the floating board might be Steelix's only chance to move. Because it lacks wings and can't swim, Steelix can't touch water, let alone use a floating platform for movement. Therefore, facing Suicune's attacks, Steelix desperately defended himself. This was the only way to maintain his mobility. Steelix's strength was undeniable. Iron Tail and Water Cannon's attacks were surprisingly blocked by Steelix. Suicune uses Freeze Ray. Unlike the fierce force condensed from the invisible water of Water Cannon, Freeze Ray is more gentle, making it virtually impossible to withstand physical attacks. Even if you could withstand the Freeze Ray's attack, you couldn't prevent its freezing effect. Facing the Freeze Ray's attack, Onix once again attempted to block it with his own strength. However, his large tail was instantly frozen by the ray of excitement. His already heavy body, enhanced by the ice, crashed heavily onto the float. The impact instantly shattered the ice, connecting it to the float into several pieces. I never expected this year's Kalos Region Pokemon League Finals to be so dramatic. It's time for the battle to be decided, Dew grumbled, shaking his head. While the intensity of this Pokemon League tournament had already surpassed his expectations, he was eagerly anticipating the upcoming League Finals. The battles leading up to this had been thrilling, but the finale was supposed to be the most intense yet. Mega Evolved Suicune versus Mega Evolved Steelix. Brother, why are you saying that? Isn't the battle even over yet? And didn't you tell me not to give up on a Pokemon battle until the very last moment? Because Pokemon battles are full of infinite possibilities, aren't they? Yulongzin reluctantly withdrew his gaze from the fierce battle and turned to look at his brother, completely puzzled by his brother's words. He didn't remember his brother saying that. Chapter 1094, Life Never Ends, Fighting Never Ends. Watery, you're right. The battle is over now. Professor Oak's voice rang out with a hint of emotion. These two little guys are really something. They could have decided this battle very quickly. But they insisted on fighting until the very end before finally giving up. Why do you say that, Professor Oak? Brother's situation may be very unfavorable to him right now, but there's still a chance of a comeback. You know, Brother Steelix is very powerful. It's precisely because your brother Steelix is so powerful that, even though he knew he might lose, he still wanted to fight Suicune to the end, but the weather wasn't favorable after all. Professor Oak's voice was also full of frustration as he said this. Because the outcome was just as he had said. Any Pokemon trainer with some skill in the field could see what the final scene was like at that moment. Call it mean, call it shameless, exploiting your advantages to win this battle is part of the fun of Pokemon battles. Suicune uses Water Cannon to attack the surrounding floats. You've finally made a move. I thought you'd always planned to let me do this. A fight between you and me doesn't require any so-called humility. Let's each fight with all our might. Steelback uses Rock Seal. Suicune uses Blizzard. Rocks attack from all sides, as if Suicune was trying to trap it within the enclosed rock space. However, Suicune's movement was extremely agile, repeatedly dodging the rock's containment with swift leaps across the water. The blizzard that followed was like a powerful ice blade, freezing everything in its path, even the air, with a layer of ice crystals. While the blizzard might have damaged Steelix, with his tenacious perseverance, remained firmly on the float. Suicune uses continuous Water Cannon. Steelback uses solid attacks to block. The Pokemon on both sides likely knew the outcome instantly, grasping the key to victory or defeat. However, precisely because of this, both Pokemon began a battle to secure and defend the F-plate. However, no matter how impenetrable Steelix's defenses were, Suicune, on the attacking side, ultimately held the advantage. Seizing an opening, Suicune unleashed a Water Cannon directly onto the surface of the water surrounding the float, sending up a massive wave. The Water Cannon's attack rips a hole in the previously sturdy float. The float, previously afloat due to its limited surface area, could no longer withstand Steelix's weight. Like a small boat in the ocean, it began to sway and sway. Even Steelix could manage to control the swaying with its own weight, but how could Suicune, the opponent, give him a chance? After unleashing several more consecutive Water Cannon attacks, the impact caused several more cracks to appear on the float. Steelix actually stumbled and fell into the water. In an instant, Steelix lost all of its previously displayed pomp and prestige. Even struggling to maintain its Mega Evolution, it retreated. Oh no. Steelix, seeing this, Yanrong, though already expecting something, still felt a surge of worry. He wanted to pull out a Pokeball to trap Steelix. However, Steelix's weight was too great, and it sank immediately upon contact. Instead, a blue figure appeared, darting into the water as if by force. Leaping back up, Steelix had already been dragged out and placed on the already shattered float. Yanrong, I'm sorry. Seeing this, Yiyu breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want to be seen as a despicable, unscrupulous villain just because of a fight. Although many might have shared this view after this battle, he still didn't want his Pokemon to be harmed. Especially since this was Yanrong's Pokemon. Ha, no need to apologize. I thoroughly enjoyed my battle with you. Besides, winning and losing are just like that. If I were in this situation with such a complete advantage, I'd definitely do the same. After all, respecting an opponent isn't about pity, it's about fighting with all your might. And if I must say it, should I thank you for saving my Steelix? Yanrong was quite open-minded. Perhaps his mindset had shifted when he drew the water battle venue. And in the final match for the championship, the grand final, Steelix, fearing water, fell unconscious and lost his ability to fight. Indeed, this should have been a fierce battle, but it ended with this outcome. The audience couldn't help but sigh, truly unpredictable. While the audience was surprised and somewhat disappointed by the outcome, they reluctantly accepted the final result of the battle. Yiyu, congratulations on winning the championship, Yiyu, you're truly amazing. While there was a bit of luck involved, you're truly formidable, Yiyu. Wait until I collect all 8 gym badges and compete in the league tournament. Then, please accept my challenge again, because the league tournament was held in the morning, it was already noon by the time it ended. Professor Oak therefore held a championship celebration for Yiyu at the Pokemon Center. Those attending the celebration were all Yiyu's acquaintances, and they all had a special bond. Meanwhile, Satoshi and Shigeki were excitedly clinging to Yiyu. Yiyu, now that you've won the Kalos region championship, what are your plans? Chen Kalin, true to her role as a senior sister, hit the nail on the head. Yiyu, shouldn't you return to China and begin your true journey of challenge? Li Zuner interrupted. I don't know about that. I've already thought about everything that happens after winning the championship, but when the time comes, I don't know what to do. Just as Yiyu was feeling a little lost, he felt a pair of strong hands on his shoulders. Professor Oak, what's going on? Okay, stop overthinking it. You won the Kalos region championship. You should be happy, right? The real award ceremony is tonight. After the banquet, you should get some rest. You and your Pokemon have been working hard these past few nights, but, okay, no buts. Wait until you've rested up and finished a battle, then think about what's next. Won't that give you more energy? Yeah. After sharing their worries, the celebration became joyful. Everyone chatted and laughed, sharing interesting stories from their respective missions. Everyone also shared their plans for the future. Yiyu, who should have been the protagonist, simply listened quietly. Afterward, he retired to his room for a nap. After all, the highlight was evening, and he'd certainly been exhausted these past few days. Everyone was in perfect agreement, not disturbing Yiyu, quietly awaiting the evening's highlight, the awards ceremony. In the late afternoon, Yiyu was dragged from his room, dazed. The league hall at this moment might not have been as lively as in previous tournaments, but the atmosphere was still vibrant. Standing on the championship podium, Yiyu stood out from the crowd. Everywhere he looked, he was greeted by cheers and applause for his victory. Pikachu, equally excited, perched on his shoulder, watched the entire scene unfold. Presenting him with a trophy was Katruna, the undisputed champion of the Kalos region. Standing on the highly anticipated championship steps, Yiyu held his trophy high in his hands. At that moment, he felt a surge of pride. The excitement of winning the championship, which had been somewhat calming, was now stirred once more. Pokemon battles are definitely the best for me. Next, I'm going to keep traveling and challenging various league gyms. I'm going to meet more Pokemon, make friends with them, and battle with more Pokemon trainers. Yiyu now understood his goal. The battles between Pokemon never stop, and I won't let up just because I won a championship. Life never ends, and so does the battle. Closing remarks. That's it. From the moment I typed the first word on November 27, 2018, to the moment it's finished, I've been filled with emotion. My initial thought was to write a book I'd finish even if no one read it, but surprisingly, I've received such support from so many lovely readers. I'm truly grateful. Now, let me share my thoughts. The performance of this book was truly dismal. Thanks to the editor's help, I was able to sign the contract after reaching 400,000 words. However, subsequent performance was less than satisfactory, and many people urged me to just give up and start a new book. However, everyone's energy is limited, especially since I'm still a student, in a difficult situation. Therefore, I decided not to start a new book and decided to finish this one. In fact, due to the poor performance of this book, I briefly considered abandoning it and starting over. Ultimately, I wanted to give the story in my heart a closure and not disappoint my readers who have supported me so long. I persevered and hastily concluded this book. While there are still many regrets, this is it. Thank you again for your support. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.